Could Sean Diddy Combs actually get thrown out of court for staring at the jury? We got Christopher Melcher here to break it down. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, back with a video with Christopher Melcher. This happened, I guess, last week. They were being threatened. Sean Diddy Combs keeps looking at the jurors. He's getting very emotion to them and giving them looks, and it seems like he's just very animated with this jury. Chris, welcome back. Glad to be here. You were telling me this is not good, right? Can this actually get him kicked out of a courtroom? Wouldn't that make it even more risky for appeals later? Welcome back to the show. And what are your thoughts on this topic of Diddy overly being animated to the jurors?
Sure. So just a little bit of background. So the judge had observed twice during a court proceeding that Diddy was, nodding his head or shaking his head, kind of either agreeing or disagreeing with testimony that was being delivered in court. And he was doing that to one or more jurors, and there was eye contact, and this was kind of nonverbal communication. The judge called for a break, and he was animated, upset about this, saying this absolutely has to stop. Now, the sketch artist, I think, was saying, well, this has been going on since the beginning. We've heard from media members saying, oh, yeah, this has been happening for a long time. I guess the judge has finally noticed it. So the problem is that, Sean Diddy Combs does not have to testify in his own defense. He can sit there and not say a word, but he can also not then communicate, non-verbally with the jury either. So he can't have it both ways. And there's a risk. We don't know how the juror or jury members are going to receive that information. Maybe they're aligned with him and they're just kind of glancing eyes and connecting and in agreement on something and kind of judging the case based on his approval or disapproval for what the testimony is. So this really has a problem. We don't know. I mean, this guy was, a very famous and powerful individual. We don't know how anyone on the jury is viewing him. Are they viewing him with disgust, or are they saying, hey, I don't like the fact that maybe some people got some paydays out of this and they think he's being set up and he's a good guy and maybe they like him? We do not know that.
Right.
So the judge needs to put a stop to it. Now, the judge says if it doesn't get stopped, he's going to kick him out of the courtroom. I don't think that can be done whatsoever. Part of our Sixth Amendment right in the United States is the right to confront witnesses. We get to see people who are confronting us. Who are testifying against us. Maybe that could be done on a video feed if he gets booted out of the courtroom. I think another way could be maybe a screen or something between him and the jury. But the problem is, the juries get to watch everything in court. His, the way he, presents himself in court is technically not evidence, but the juror can look at that. And it's very difficult.
Right. And I imagine in cases like that can affect a juror, right? If they're seeing there's no remorse or there is actual emotion or genuine feelings, like watching the defendant can be an important part of it for a juror, no?
It is, and we've seen that as trial watchers. It's, I caution, it's very difficult to tell what somebody's thinking based on the way that they look. Sometimes it's obvious, but many times we're misled by that. And so it's very difficult. Like the lawyers typically would say, okay, defendant, just sit there stoically and don't react. Well, okay, so if you follow that advice and you're hearing all this horrific testimony about you and you're not reacting, maybe the jury says, wow, this guy he doesn't have any emotion whatsoever. He listened to the most terrible testimony about women who apparently love this guy, and he was horrible to them, and he sat there stoically. And they might say, yeah, this guy's evil. But he was just following what the lawyers told him to do. Right. So, I think you got to show some emotion. Maybe, to me, maybe have a little shed a tear every once in a while and show wow, okay, this guy, he feels something. He's hurt by it. He shares in her hurt. So it has to be done right. But I think nodding up and down, good job on the cross. I don't, that certainly should not be happening.
Well, because even here it's saying that when the jurors were being selected here during selection, Combs was nodding his head up and down the direction of the potential jurors. They're clear, he's leaving the courtroom doing, the ha 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 to all the people that are in the gallery as well. I mean, the other part here is Diddy told the courtroom artist she makes him look like a koala. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on here, right? Where it's just like, he's in prison all day. I'm sure it's part of, like, he gets to engage with people now, and that's part of it. But can this, because that's what's fascinating. You already answered what I was going to ask of. Thank you, because it seems incredibly risky to just completely remove him from a court and not face his accuser. So I'm glad to hear that's very unlikely, but I guess that's what I'm still trying to figure out. Like, how dangerous is this actually for Diddy? Could he just keep ignoring it and keep doing it? I guess, have they ever put screens up? Can you think of any instances where this has happened? What's the most likely scenario?
Yeah, so there are ways of doing that. That could be, a video feed, maybe a screen, maybe position him in a different place in the courtroom, maybe with his back to the jury. So there's ways of working around it. Right now, as a judge is being threatening about it, and I got to imagine that'll have some at least temporary impact on his behavior. The judge could also give an instruction to the jury that, and maybe indicate it anyway, that, this signaling by the defendant is to be ignored and is not to be treated as communication, that his acceptance or denial of testimony by nodding his head or shaking his head is not evidence, and they have to disregard that.
Does that help? Does that help anybody? Like, when a judge has to tell a jury that?
Well, this is the thing is, the prosecutor might want that. To the extent that it has any impact on us to be told by a judge not to consider something. I just don't know how this lands on a particular juror, and it only requires one person. Most of us all, kind of looking at the comments, kind of feel similar to the way the testimony's gone, but it only takes one juror to hang. And I have seen jurors hang on the craziest things. They might say, I don't like the way he was sitting in court, or I don't like the fact that Cassie got all these settlements from him, and then the hotel, I guess, is going to get next. So we don't know what's going to happen. That's why this communication that's going on can't continue, but the judge is really limited on what he can do, because Diddy absolutely has a right to confront, meaning watch, the people who are going into court accusing him of wrongdoing.
Well, it's also weird because we've gotten reports from people who are in the courtroom who say there are some jurors who are like into it, who are doing it back to Diddy. And then my whole worry is, like, how does the judge even keep track of all that? Is someone usually watching a jury for that? Like, how do you monitor that kind of stuff? And then if you catch a juror member, like, almost doing fingers back, like, then it gets more dangerous. No, like, what's the protocol then?
Yeah. So when I was doing jury trials, we would have jury consultants and, on both sides in bigger cases, and they would study the jurors. They would get as much information as possible. They would look at, kind of facial expressions during different parts of the testimony and take note of that and try and make inferences from it. They would see if you're coming into court with a book, what kind of book are you reading and what can we learn from you based on that book? So certainly, if there is some familiarity being, shown here, where it's not just a pleasantry, but there's some kind of communication happening here, that is not a good thing for the prosecutor.
So stuff to keep looking for, but overall, you think the koala is staying in the courtroom. The koala is not going to get kicked out of there. That's very unlikely, because it would help his appeal, no?
Yeah, I think I really don't see the judge doing anything other than threatening.
And so he and the jurors should still watch out. It's not going to help if the judge is mad and the jury gets this feedback. But man, what a crazy case it's been. It's still a long ways to go. We will keep you posted. Hopefully get Chris back to talk about it. But I want to make sure we got that topic out to you all. What do you think? Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell for alerts. Smash that thumbs up as well and let us know what you think. Is that fair? Are you cool with Diddy finger gunning all the juror members? Heart signing them? I mean, what other emojis next? We'll keep you posted. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you as always, Chris. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming your way here on Popcorn Planet.